Imagine this. There's 2326, and you're on a spaceship on your way to terraform a planet to gather its resources. It's been 3 months on board the ship, and today is finally the day you can land and get to work. But during your descent, something happens. The ship you're on starts going down, and it goes down fast. You board a life pod, and you descend out from the ship. From the top hatch, you see the remnants of your ship as it burns on re-entrance. As you descend to the unknown planet below, you are hit with a wave of turbulence that knocks a metal sheet off the side of the life pod. The metal bounces around the life pod, knocking into various objects. As it continues, it finally gets to your side of the pod and hits you square in the forehead, knocking you out cold. As you wake up disoriented, you climb out of the pod to the top and gaze upon the vast expanse of the world. And by that, I mean your crashed ship and the seemingly endless sea you landed in. Hello and good morning. This is your local nerd, Ben Brunsting, and welcome to the Deep Dive Podcast. If you're wondering what that monologue was about, then sit tight. Let me explain. Basically, I just explained to you the starting moments of the game Subnautica, an open-world game based entirely on an alien planet made of 98.7% ocean. Today, I wanted to talk to you about this game and my experiences with it while having thalassophobia. So let's dive right in. The exposition. Here, I'm going to explain some of the major plot points of the story of Subnautica. As you heard in the open, you crashed on a planet named 4546b and must find a way to escape. But to do that, you have to find out what caused the ship you came in, which is named the Aurora, to fall from the sky. You find out sometime into the game that it was a highly tech-efficient alien race known simply as the Precursors, who brought a disease to the planet with the hopes of finding a cure. But the disease breaks containment and infects the planet, ending the Precursors. But before being wiped out, they installed a weapon that would enforce a planet-wide quarantine by shooting down any craft leaving or entering the planet's atmosphere. With the odds ever against you, you must defy them, find your way off the planet before the disease kills you. That, or the sea monsters. The question. Now it's funny how even with my thalassophobia, which for context is a fear of deep and expansive waters, I was still really excited to play this game. Part of me thinks that it wasn't so much me being excited to play, as much as it was me being excited to finally take some steps to get over this fear of mine. And this was really highlighted as I went farther and farther into the water. Now, not to brag, I've played a lot of horror games, but under almost no circumstances have I ever had to pause the game out of fear. But that changed when I played Subnautica. Having to pause over and over whenever I got too freaked out, which happened often, gave me a large amount of time to ponder what exactly it was that made me scared of the oceans. To be 100% honest, I had almost completely forgotten just what it was that made me scared. And that hurt me, as it made it borderline impossible to figure out what to work on to get over my fear. But Subnautica really brought it back. The amazing soundtrack. One of the factors that really pushed me to have to pause the game was the score, which, by the way, is some of the best music I've ever heard. With music that evokes emotion or just makes you comfortable. But sometimes, and by sometimes I do mean often, the music just abruptly stops. And all you're left with is some ambience and the roars of distant sea creatures. That's when my fear really kicks into high gear. With the soundtrack having only about 56 songs, which is a paltry sum for a game this massive, each song needed to be special. And with songs like Salutations, which plays at the beginning of every playthrough, that brings an air of curiosity to the world that you currently reside in. Or to contrast, the song Liftoff that plays during your final moments in the oceans of 4546B as you board your newly created rocket ship and blast off into the atmosphere to finally return home. The former is a song that evokes the feeling of wonder and awe, and the latter is one that is triumphant, to symbolize you're finally escaping from the cage that is the ocean of Subnautica. And these are only 2 examples of some of the great music. But the score isn't the only thing that makes me feel as though I am really submerged within the waters of the ocean. What really did this is the amazing game design put forth by Unknown Worlds Entertainment. The Fear. With such an amazing game from Unknown Worlds Entertainment, I feel it is important to emphasize the feeling of dread that they sometimes give to you. So let me set a scene for you. You've reached a new point in the game, and the music stops playing, with subtle ambience being substituted in. The water turns a new color, signifying you've reached a new area. It's dark, and you can't see but 2 feet in front of you. Suddenly you hear, and the music kicks into high gear, with some action-packed track, but you still can't see the threat. You know it's there, and that it's most likely circling you, but you just can't see it. Suddenly, out of nowhere, you're grabbed by a large eel-like sea monster, with 4 sharp mandibles grasping you with a ghastly strength. And before you can even scream, you're eaten alive. Now, imagine that, but not on a whatever-inch TV, but instead in VR or virtual reality, where you were completely within the game. Absolutely nobody in this world could argue that that isn't terrifying. And that was pretty much the whole game for me. I go to a new area, get absolutely terrified of the world all over again, and then get more comfortable with each area as I learn the creature's pathing and how to avoid them. The crew. One of the biggest things in this game is the theme of getting back up, no matter how many times you're knocked down. Like how throughout the story, the main character continues to get kicked down. Like when a rescue ship comes down to save you, only to be shot down in front of you by something you can't stop. Then, hope comes in the form of an emergency message from your home base, where they send you blueprints for a spaceship capable of taking you off-world, but that gets shot down metaphorically by the fact that nothing you've encountered thus far can generate enough power to get the ship off-world. As you explore more, you find out about your deadline in the form of a virus that will kill you in 3 days' time, and how that very disease has claimed a group of people who crashed before your arrival. And as one of the crew members put in a lost journal, they joined the ecosystem. But even with all of these forces knocking you down, your character gets back up, and you press onward. The answer. As I put earlier, the main reason I played this game was to hopefully conquer my fear of the ocean depths. And even if it didn't quite get rid of that fear for me, it still allowed me to really hone in on just what it was that made me shudder, even when near a just shallow pool. You see, even with all of this, I wasn't as afraid of the creatures that lie within the water. I was afraid of the loneliness of drowning, the sinking feeling of falling deeper and deeper as I slowly run out of my only lifeline, air. The feeling of loneliness that only the waters can give, as you can't scream for help nor hear the world coming to help you. You are left with only the gut-wrenching thoughts of, is this how I die? Alone and cold. As you slowly lose your vision. But that is what I am afraid of. Even knowing that within my head, even knowing the loneliness of drowning, this game, it taught me something. This game taught me that no matter how bleak it is, no matter how much you want to give up, that there is always hope if you search hard enough. That there is always a light at the end of the dark tunnel. That there is always something that makes fighting for your life worth the effort and the pain. And that knowledge, that feeling cannot be taken away from me by the ocean depths. Even with that depressing turn I took, I hope I inspired you to dive right into the jaw-dropping game that is Subnautica. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you've enjoyed. My name is Ben, and thank you for listening to the Deep Dive podcast. And I want to leave you off with one of my favorite quotes from Subnautica. What is a wave without an ocean? A beginning without an end. They are different, but they go together. Now you go among the stars, and I fall among the sand. We are different, but we go together.